What is going on, YouTube? Welcome back to Fireside Rangers. I'm your host, Eric Wilson. Today, joined by my co-host, Colin Alcabes. Today, we're going to be doing a little bit of a two-part thing going on right now. First thing we're going to do, recap Game 5. What a game it was. And second part, we're going to be talking about upcoming Game 6 tomorrow. Who could possibly save the day for the Rangers? Because honestly, things aren't looking too hot, but we'd like to stay confident over here, even when things aren't going exactly how we want it to. So we're going to get right into that. But before we do, make sure you guys like, subscribe, ring that bell so you don't miss notification, leave your thoughts on Game 5 and the upcoming Game 6 down in the comment section below. And lastly, be sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms at Fireside Rangers on Instagram, X, and TikTok. But quick intro there, Colin, wrap it up for us. How you doing, and what were your initial reactions to Game 5?
I wish they had won. I'd be doing a little bit better. Obviously, we didn't get the result we wanted. And I don't think it was their strongest performance. I think that was one of their better first periods of the postseason. And then I think the wheels fell off the wagon there. But that's just my take on it. I mean, obviously, we'll get into it a little bit more. As good as I can be, they're just sticking to the script. And that's going to be my copium for the day.
Yeah, we'll say, I will admit, so far, this series has played out exactly like the Eastern Conference Finals did in 1994. Started with a loss, then 2 wins, then a loss. And as we know, the Rangers would go on to win that series by winning 2 straight. It kind of seems like at this point we're just waiting for someone to guarantee a win and step up and be the hero. But we'll get into that in a little bit. For now, got to talk about what went wrong in Game 5. And, like you mentioned, one of the better first periods we've seen the Rangers put on throughout these entire playoffs, but it kind of seems like a running theme throughout these playoffs that the Rangers start their games really good in the first period, and then it immediately just goes downhill immediately after. We saw it in Game 4, too, Game 3 as well. I was like, the Rangers start off so hot, get a little bit of a lead, and then after that, they just sit on it. And it seems like there's no sense of urgency, especially from the top players. I will say Zibanejad did not have a terrible Game 5. We talked about how he basically cost us Game 4, put up 2 assists. But, the second one came like the last 10 seconds of the game. Like, thank you for trying then.
Too little, too late.
Too little, too late. But Kreider as well had an assist. Panarin was just gone again in Game 5. And I think the common theme that we're seeing here in all these games and throughout the series is that the top stars need to be better. Kreider, Zibanejad, Panarin, they've had their moments where they've shined, but it's not enough. And I will say, Alexis Lafreniere, there's a reason why you're on this graphic. You're the only one who seems like you know what you're doing right now. Only one who wants to win the Stanley Cup, besides Igor, of course. I'm just talking about the offensive core. But all in all, especially the Rangers defense, I will add, it's not been enough. And if we play like we did in Game 5 and Game 4 as well, in Game 6, the season will end tomorrow. I'll be very upfront about that. The Rangers need a very big bounce back game. Cannot perform like they did in Game 5. But when you look at Game 5, Colin, was there anyone in particular who you want to point a finger at, who needs to step up or anything?
Just like the decor, really. I think they're struggling as a whole. A lot of dumb penalties. Miller took a couple. I thought one of them was soft. I think the other one was justified. That breakdown by Fox and Lindgren to let whoever scored the first goal, I forget his name. No, it starts with an L. Is either Lundell or Lusterinen or one of these guys. But one of them went right up the middle, untouched, and scored. Like, that can't happen. That cannot happen. The decor as a whole just really, really struggling. And you're right, the stars. I think the most frustrating part about this series is, like, this is the most adversity that the superstars have faced, and they've done nothing to change their game whatsoever. And it's like, clearly what you're doing hasn't been working. Maybe switch up your play style a little bit. Like, stars need to show up in every level. Superstars need to show up at every point of a postseason run. And you're seeing that with all the other teams. But Panarin has straight up pieced out of this series. He hasn't really done anything since that overtime goal against the Hurricane that he tipped between the legs, in my opinion. I don't think he's had any really great plays or anything like that. He's becoming super predictable again. He's shooting the puck more. But the big thing is there's just no – you're right. There's no sense of urgency. There's no drive. We're getting beat to every puck. We're getting out-muscled, out-worked, outplayed consistently, and it's just extremely frustrating, especially when we have a guy like Igor between the pipes who's doing his very best to keep us in it. It's not enough. And I think it sucks that might be what it takes, but to have our back up against the wall, sometimes it's when the Rangers play their best hockey. I mean, that is the comeback stat to a T. Is when the going gets tough, the Rangers kind of get going. Unfortunately, last night they decided to get going when there was 3 minutes and 27 seconds left. Like, they just waited way too long. They had the whole third. They had half the third to try and come back after that goal went in, and it's just no drive until the very last minute. So, I think they're definitely going to recognize that going into this next game, that their lives are on the line. And we've talked about it in every series, except for it's been the opposite way. But when you back a team into a corner, it can really spark something. And we've seen it with the Rangers in years past. I know, even going further back, we've seen when this Rangers team is down, they're never out. So I'm not too down bad. I know I was saying yesterday that I was really hurting after that loss, and I was. But I saw a stat today, the Rangers are like 7-2 in game sixes when they're down in the series. So that's a very encouraging stat. It seems like this one is built for 7. It just depends on if everybody decides to show up, because you've been getting the contributions from Lafreniere, who has 8 goals this playoffs. Phenomenal. I mean, Kreider woke up last night. I thought that was one of his better games this series. Obviously, the best game this series, and the best game since that game 6 against the Hurricane. And then you get in contributions from guys like Goudreau. Wenberg scores his second as a Ranger, which is the last thing you're expecting to see. Like, the defense is kind of jumping in a little bit and putting shots on net. Like, you need everybody to kind of be firing on all cylinders, but you really need your stars to be your stars. And I think that is the biggest thing going into this next game.
Yeah. I mean, I will say before the series started, like, I made a couple jokes saying like Rangers in 5. Like, I never meant that seriously. I think we all knew from the beginning it was going to be a 7-game series no matter what, or maybe 6 if tomorrow doesn't go our way. But we knew it would be a long, hard-fought series. So I can't say that I'm shocked that we're in this position. Like you said, Rangers have done phenomenally in the past in game 6s when they're down in the series. So, fingers crossed things can go right tomorrow evening. But the last thing I want to touch upon, just because I haven't been able to get your opinion on it recently, is in game 5, Matt Rempe had just over 2 minutes of ice time. Now, to me, like, if I'm Laviolette, like, if you're going to put Rempe in the lineup, you got to play him. Let him make the impact that we all know he can. If you're only going to play him for 2 minutes, you might as well throw in Johnny Brodzinski or Blake Wheeler, like one of the two. But I'm curious to hear your opinion on Rempe in this series and the lack of ice time he's been receiving, and then we'll get into the last part of the video.
I like Rempe. I like what he brings to a team. I'm excited to see what he has next season because he's a cheap guy. And he can plug into the bottom 6. Right now, I'm kind of over the Rempe experiment. I think in this moment in time, you need a guy who's going to go out there, who's going to drive offense a little bit. You're going to be able to trust him for more than 2 minutes of ice time. And while you keep him around for that muscle and that grit, if you don't let him go out there and provide that muscle and grit, what are you doing? Just eating up a spot. You have consistent NHLers who have played at this level, at the highest level, for a long time, and guys like Wheeler, and then even, what's his name? I can't even think of it. The Brodzinski. That's it. Brodzinski played well this season, and he's had experience on previous teams in the past, more experience than Rempe, and those are guys that Laviolette will trust to play for more than 2 minutes. So, to keep a short bench for 2 minutes of grit, and half the time Rempe's on his ass anyway because he's been knocked around a lot, and he hasn't really gotten to go out there and fight back. I just don't think there's a point. I don't see the appeal of it. And another thing that I want to touch on quick before we bounce to something else, Hedl has to play. Hedl has to play.
He does.
He was phenomenal last night. He was very good, and it was noticeable in the game that he didn't play. Looking at the game that we won in game 3 where he was there, game 4 he's not there, game 5 he's there. I mean, I know obviously we didn't get the results we wanted in 4 or 5, but there was a noticeable dip in 4. And then when he came back, it felt like that he was just everywhere. So that's a big thing that needs to happen in terms of players that have to play. He has to be one of them. And then from there, I'm not opposed to putting Wheeler on the 4th line because, like I said, he has that playoff pedigree and experience. I know a lot of people don't like him. He's not the fastest. He's not the flashiest. But he's sound, and he's just a guy that you can put out there, and he'll do his job, and he'll do it well. He's not the Blake Wheeler that put up 80 points with the Jets, and we've kind of had to make peace with that. That's not what he was supposed to be. He was supposed to be a grinder guy in the bottom 4, or the bottom six, I mean, who would just do his role. I think that's what he can do. I think he can do more than Rempe can, and I think that he would also, it just allows your top six guys more rest, because with Rempe not playing, that means you're shortening the bench earlier, and it's just you're more exhausted in the crunch time, and that can't be happening. We need all hands on deck, as many minutes as we can afford from everybody until we eventually have to shorten the bench. So the more we can get the bottom six playing, the more it'll allow us to stack the lines come clutch time, if we need to tie it up, or if we're looking to go ahead late.
Yeah, that's a very good analysis on it. It's frustrating to see. We obviously love Peter Laviolette, and we recognize all the wonders he's done from this team. But it is frustrating to see Matt Rempe be in the lineup but not utilized as much as maybe he should be. But before we wrap things up here, we got a big Game 6 coming up tomorrow. Who is going to be the player to step up and save the day? In my opinion, I made sure that our editor, Danny, put Alexi Lafreniere on the graphics for a reason. Like you said, he has 8 goals in the playoffs. He's the only Ranger who looks like he knows what's on the line. I'm going to say if anyone's going to – Igor is a given, by the way. Like, I don't want to say Igor because that's just a really basic answer.
Redundant. Everybody knows. We don't have to bring him up because he's just that good. He's just in God tier all the time. So we don't even have to mention how great he is because everybody knows it.
Exactly. So when I say aside from Igor, who's going to put on the performance of a lifetime and have a legacy game, I might go Alexi Lafreniere. I think he's the only Ranger who's trying right now. If anyone's going to step up, I think it's going to be him. But how do you feel?
I'm going to take Vinny T. I know Tony would obviously agree with that take as a big Vinny T supporter. I'm our Paisan. But, for a guy who's never been on all the teams he was in the past, he wasn't like the guy. But I feel like he scored so many clutch goals this postseason, and even in the regular season he scored. I feel like it's just his year, and his revenge tour has to continue. And, I feel like it's not any team more fitting for him to score against and can keep the series alive than it is the Panthers, the team that he started with, and that kind of let him go for nothing. I think it'll be him, but that's just me. I think more importantly, it's just going to come down to whoever the hell's in front of the net, because Bob isn't getting beat on a shot. You need to take his eyes and deflect pucks. That's the only way you're going to get it by him. He's just so big and very, very good. And to my knowledge, there's only been like one shot that straight up beat him, and it was Goudreau on the overtime in Game 2. To my knowledge, everything else has been either like a pass or a deflection or something like that. He doesn't get beat straight up on shots. It just doesn't happen a lot. So you got to take his eyes and create traffic in front and crash the net for those rebounds. Because boy, were they juicy last game, and boy, was there nobody even close to any of them.
Yeah. Quite unfortunate, but you heard it here first. Tomorrow night, either Alexi Lafreniere or Vincent Trocheck are going to have the game of their lives, and then we'll be back for Game 7. You know what? If anyone needs to make a guarantee, it's going to be me. God damn it! I guarantee that the Rangers will be back at Madison Square Garden for Game 7. How about that?
So that's a bold move. I definitely knock on something as you are the walking jinx. Although I think you broke that stigma.
I'm not knocking on a single thing right now. I'm breaking the jinx.
All right. If they win, you know who to come and thank. If they lose, Fireside Utah is in full swing.
Oh yeah, no, I was lighting up the group chat last night about Fireside Utah. If you guys want to see that, let me know down in the comment section below, because we could definitely expand the Fireside brand to Utah as well. But that about wraps up today's episode. To everyone who tuned in, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure you hit that like button, that subscribe button, and you ring that bell so you don't miss notification. And once again, leave your thoughts down in the comment section below. And lastly, be sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms at Fireside Rangers. We'll be back tomorrow for some Game 6 coverage. But until then, have a good one. And let's go
Rangers.